first time Harper saw herself reflected in the glass window of the Seattle cafe that cold November morning, she almost didn't recognize the woman staring back. Her hair was tied in a loose, messy ponytail, her eyes tired and glossed with weeks of hidden tears, and her shoulders hunched as if she carried the weight of every mistake she'd ever made. She had come to meet someone she cared about, someone she believed she had already disappointed long before today even began. She didn't know that by the end of the day, a small pair of innocent eyes and a man with more wounds than she could imagine would change everything she thought she knew about herself. If you're watching this and believe in kindness, second chances, and the healing power of compassion, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your support helps stories like these reach more hearts. Harper pushed open the door and stepped inside. The warmth of the cafe hit her immediately, but it didn't chase the chill inside her chest. She scanned the room until her gaze landed on a man sitting at a booth near the window, dressed in a navy blazer, his hands gently resting on the small shoulders of a little girl in a lavender dress. His name was Aaron. The child was Grace, his 4-year-old daughter, who had come into Harper's life like sunlight breaking through her darkest clouds. And now Harper feared she was about to lose them both. She approached slowly, her steps quiet and unsure. The little girl's face lit up the moment she saw her, and Harper's heart twisted painfully, not because of the love she felt, but because she believed she didn't deserve that kind of pure affection. Grace reached out for her like she always did, but Harper hesitated before taking the tiny hand. She had spent the last week convincing herself that Aaron's recent silence meant he had finally seen what she'd been trying to hide all along, that she wasn't enough for him, not enough for Grace, not enough for the life she secretly wanted but was too afraid to claim. Aaron watched her with concern, sensing the difference in her posture and the quiet tremble in her hands, but he didn't speak. He simply waited. Harper slid into the seat across from them, unsure where she belonged anymore. The cafe around them buzzed with the hum of conversations and clinking cups, but Harper felt like she was trapped in her own bubble, one filled with memories, fears, and every moment she had doubted her worth. She thought of how she met Aaron 6 months earlier, when she was working nights at the local bookstore and struggling to stitch her life back together after walking away from a relationship that had stripped her confidence. Aaron had come in looking for children's books, exhausted but patient, and Harper remembered how Grace had peeked over the counter, shy but curious. The three of them had formed a quiet connection that none of them fully understood at the time. Harper had never meant to care this much. She had never meant to fall for a man who carried the weight of single fatherhood with a grace that humbled her. She had never meant to fall for a little girl who reached for her hand as naturally as breathing. And she certainly had never meant to imagine a future with them. She had always been taught that some people simply weren't meant to have beautiful things, and she had spent her whole life believing she was one of them. Now she sat across from them, holding back tears as Grace swung her legs and hummed softly, unaware of the storm building inside the woman she adored. Aaron leaned forward slightly, watching Harper's trembling fingers. He noticed everything, things she didn't think anyone could ever see, and that scared her even more. The silence between them grew heavier. Harper finally forced herself to speak, not with confidence, but with the fragile voice of someone bracing to break. She spoke about feeling out of place, feeling undeserving, feeling like every step she took in their direction was a step she wasn't qualified to make. She admitted she'd been pulling away, not because she didn't care, but because she cared too much and feared she wasn't the kind of woman Aaron or Grace needed. Her words were quiet, but they carried every unspoken fear she'd locked inside her chest. Aaron listened without interrupting. His expression didn't harden, didn't close off. If anything, his eyes softened with the weight of understanding. Grace watched them, her small face puzzled, sensing the emotional tension even without knowing the words behind it. Harper's voice cracked when she finally concluded that maybe she should step back for their good, before Grace grew more attached, before Aaron realized she wasn't enough. But before she could rise from her seat, something unexpected happened. Grace reached across the table and placed both her small hands on Harper's arm. The touch was soft, warm, innocent, but powerful enough to bring tears to Harper's eyes. The little girl smiled at her, a simple expression, but one filled with the kind of love that adults often complicate. And then Aaron's voice broke the silence, steady but thick with emotion. Not dramatic, not loud, just real. He told Harper what she didn't know, that Grace had asked for her every night that week, that she slept with the stuffed teddy bear Harper had given her on her birthday, that she told everyone Miss Harper makes everything better. And Aaron, with his quiet truthfulness, admitted that Harper had been the first person in years who made him feel like he wasn't alone in the world. Harper sat frozen, her breath caught between disbelief and hope she was afraid to feel. Aaron told her that he didn't want her to leave, that neither of them did, that she didn't need to be perfect. She just needed to stay. The words hit her like a warm wave breaking against a frozen shore. She thought she wasn't good enough, but the single dad, the man who held his little girl's happiness as tightly as his own, was asking her to stay. Not because she had earned it, not because she had proven anything, but because she mattered, because her presence brought comfort, light, and healing in ways she couldn't see. Harper lowered her head, tears spilling freely. Grace scooted closer and rested her head against Harper's arm, as if she'd been doing it all her life. And in that moment, something inside Harper cracked open, not pain, not fear, but possibility. The cafe around them blurred into soft colors and muffled sound. It felt like the world paused just long enough for her to breathe again. For the first time, she allowed the idea that maybe she wasn't the broken woman she thought she was. Maybe she was someone worth loving, someone who could belong. Over the next weeks, Harper didn't transform overnight, but she began learning what she had denied herself for so long: gentleness, forgiveness, and the slow journey toward believing her own worth. Aaron supported her quietly, never pushing, simply offering space beside him that slowly became hers. Grace, in her small, joyful ways, taught Harper how healing could look like crayons on the floor, bedtime stories, and unexpectedly tight hugs. Bit by bit, Harper discovered that love wasn't something reserved for people with perfect pasts or flawless confidence. It was something built in small, everyday moments, moments she had always been worthy of, even when she didn't know it. And the day Grace reached up and called her "My Harper," Aaron looked at her with an expression that said everything: gratitude, admiration, and something deeper. Something that made Harper realize that the life she once thought was impossible was slowly unfolding in front of her. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe. Your support means more than you know and helps keep these emotional stories alive. Before you go, please comment below. Everyone deserves a second chance. Harper had once believed she wasn't good enough, but life has a way of proving us wrong in the most beautiful ways. And sometimes all it takes is one person, one honest voice, one small hand reaching out to remind us that we are worthy of staying for, worthy of loving, and worthy of the happiness we once thought belonged to others.